Attention all men's ministry leaders. We are excited to announce the first ever No Regrets National Leadership Summit, April 26th and 27th at Elmbrook Church in Brookfield, Wisconsin. This incredible 2-day summit will give you the strategies and tools needed to take your ministry to men to the next level. You'll hear from nationally renowned pastor, author, and speaker Steve Carter, along with Steve Sonderman and many of the seasoned leadership trainers of the No Regrets team. The National Leadership Summit is the perfect place to bring your entire team of leaders to hang out together, learn together, and envision the future of men's ministry at your church together. Register today and take advantage of our lowest pricing option beginning at just $89 per person. Don't miss the No Regrets National Leadership Summit, April 26th and 27th at Elmbrook Church in Brookfield, Wisconsin. For more information, visit noregretsmen.org and sign up today. We'll plan to see you in April. Welcome to the No Regrets Leadership Podcast, where leaders are empowered to equip and disciple men.
Welcome to the No Regrets Leadership Podcast. My name is Steve Sonderman, and I'm your host for today. Each week we seek to talk to a speaker, a author, a key thought leader in the area of leadership, men's ministry, or men. And this week, what we're going to do is we're going to listen to one of the talks that was given at this year's No Regrets Men's Conference just a few weeks ago. And the talk you'll be listening today is by Brady Boyd, who's a pastor out in Colorado Springs. And the talk is entitled Addicted to Busy. I don't know about you, but if you're anything like me, you find yourself doing lots of things. And instead of doing the important things, we just do lots of things. In this talk, Brady addresses that issue and talks about what does it mean to live a balanced life? What does it mean to get rest? What does it mean to have a Sabbath in your life? And I know that you'll be so encouraged by this talk. Let's listen now to Brady Boyd.
Good morning. Good to be in Wisconsin in February. Is that right? Is that where we are? February? It's like summer here right now, right? My wife just texted me and said it's snowing in Colorado. I said, well, I came to Wisconsin to warm up. And I never thought I would say that, ever. But thank you. I brought some warm weather with me. By the way, last week I was in South America to do a pastor's conference. It was 91 degrees when I got off the plane. Listen, this is what happened. It was like 5 below in Colorado. I get off the plane, it's 91, and I just sat in the parking lot of the airport in Colombia and thought I lost 7 pounds. I just thawing out. All that. So I just want you to know there is an area of the world right now where it's warm, and I don't want to distract you right now, but just keep that in mind. Summer's coming. It's good to be with you. This is my second time to be at the conference. I love the vision, the heart from Pastor Steve. He's been leading this for 30 years. Can we just honor the team of men, the men and women that pulled us off? So proud of him. And I think all of us would agree that we are at a pivotal time in world history, in our nation's history, where it's never been more important for men to stand up and love Jesus. And by the way, Jesus is the one that saved me. He's the one that found me when I was deep in the woods lost, right? He's the one that healed me. He's the one that rescued me. He's the one that adopted me. Therefore, I believe Jesus gets all of our worship, all of our adoration, all of our praise. Can we just agree with that this morning, that he's the reason we're all sitting in this room on a Saturday morning when we could be doing 100 other things. We decided to come together under the banner of the resurrected Christ. Amen? Is that why we're here this morning? So, can you guys turn them up just a little bit? Okay. I can yell. I'm from Louisiana, so I got a little yell in me. I got a little Pentecostal yelling in me if you need some of that now. All right, turn in your Bible to Luke chapter 5, because I want to show you something about Jesus that most men do not know. And I'll have to be honest with you, I was in my 20s, almost 30 years old, before I learned what I'm about to tell you about Jesus. I wish I had learned it earlier, because it almost cost me my marriage. It almost cost me everything in my young 20s. I guess I was about 25 to 30 years old. I was already married, but I was a mess. How many of you remember your 20s, where, you just weren't fully formed quite yet? And maybe some of you are in your 60s and you're still there. I don't know. It's not an age issue, because you can be young and wise and you can be old and foolish. Is that right? So it's not about age. It's about maturity. It's about being taught. And I was not taught well about this subject. In fact, I wrote a book on it. It's called Addicted to Busy. It's the best thing I've ever written. And I want to talk to you today about the Jesus rhythm. There was a rhythm that Jesus lived his life. You know that Jesus never moved faster than 3 miles an hour. He lived 33 years. That was top speed, 33 miles an hour. He walked everywhere. You never hear one time in the Bible where Jesus was running. He walked on a methodical pace. He was a slow and steady, methodical Savior who was marching his way toward the cross and an empty tomb, but he got to where he needed to go. And so I want to make a statement today, and I'm going to make an assumption in the room. I am assuming that in the room today, and all of you watching online, that I'm not talking to a group of lazy, disconnected, slothful men. I'm not talking to that group. This message is not for that group. I'm talking to a group of men who you love your families, you're probably working a job, you have friends that you're supporting, you have a mom and dad that you're trying to take care of, you have kids that you love, grandkids that you love. You wake up every day with a full plate. You have plenty to do, in other words. So my question is, how do you do what you're called to do, and at what pace are you to do them? So I'm going to make a statement, okay? And I want you to write this down, and this is a great conversation to have with your small group later this week or with your guys today at lunch. But I'm going to make a statement, and I want you to consider it before you reject it, okay? But listen to this statement. Most of our problems are either caused or made worse because we're moving too fast for too long. In fact, if you know, many of you that are in construction, or if you're in some kind of building, you know almost every mistake in construction is because somebody got in a hurry. Well, you measure twice to cut once, right? And most of the mistakes are because we got in a hurry. We were not paying attention. I think that's also true about our life. In fact, 30 plus years of being a pastor, I can tell you that sitting in a room with married couples that are a mess, most of the time, either the husband or the wife have had a long stretch of time where they've been distracted from one another. Most men in the room are leading lonely lives because we simply don't have enough time to have friends. Listen, loneliness is a self-inflicted wound in the church. Let me say that one more time. Loneliness in the local church is a self-inflicted wound. In other words, there's no reason for men who attend a local church to be alone. You're sitting within 30 feet right now of some really great men. You're sitting within 30 feet right now of men who have walked the path before you, who have immeasurable wisdom and guidance for you, but you have to ask, right? We're sitting in a room full of wisdom and discernment, but we go too fast for too long, and we miss the opportunity to connect with the mentors and the sages that we need in our life. But here's another thing I want to say, and I think it's growing up, my dad was a hard worker. My mom is still a hard worker. My mom is 78 years old. She still drives a pickup and has a gun in her purse. I mean, she's tough. I ain't lying. Let me tell you one quick story. She calls me the other night. She goes to Wednesday night prayer meeting. She goes to Sunday morning church, Sunday night church, and Wednesday night prayer meeting 3 times a week. And if she misses one of them, she thinks she's going to hell. I mean, she is a devout Jesus follower, and she always has a gun in her purse too, by the way, so don't mess with her. So she says to me, hey, Brady, I came home the other night, and there was a big snake at my back door. I said, Mom, describe this snake to me. She said, well, I think it probably weighed about 80 pounds. I said, wait, Mom, she lives in East Texas. She doesn't live in Africa. I said, Mom, there was a snake that weighed 80 pounds. It was about 80 pounds, Brady, and it hissed at me. And so she started describing it. It was like one of those anaconda or whatever. It was some kind of exotic snake that her neighbor had turned out 3 years ago and moved to Houston, let the snake run wild in the neighborhood. And now we know where all the dogs had gone, because this thing was huge. I said, Mom, what'd you do? She goes, well, Brady, the only good snake is a... Thank you very much. So she took her garden hoe and killed it and threw it in the lake at 78 years old. So that's the people I grew up with. There was no slacking around at my house. I didn't grow up in a lazy home. I grew up in a hardworking, blue-collar, get up, get your job done, go to bed early, and that's the kind of work environment I grew up in. But here's what I found growing up, that there's a problem with it as well, because I found that if we're busy, we feel important. And it becomes almost an idolatry. It always becomes an idol to, our schedule becomes our idol. You know, in other words, if we slow down, I said this to a couple the other day, they're just hard-working young couple, real ambitious, full of vinegar, but their marriage is a mess. And I said to them, if we slow down, the problem with slowing down is that you'll have to be honest with what's really happening in your lives. And I said to them, when was the last time you had an unhurried conversation with the woman that you love? All right, so I'm going to ask you the question. This is where your toes are going to feel a little stepped on here, okay? When was the last time you sat down over a good cup of coffee, whatever you drink, and you were not in a hurry for the conversation to end? In other words, you had a lingering, unhurried conversation with the person that you love. Now, I've been married 34 years. I got married in the 7th grade. We were 12 years old. It was a scandal of junior high. But 35 years this August to the same girl. She's been my girlfriend for 38 years. Listen, this is the single greatest battle that we fight in our home. And our kids are gone now. We're empty nesters. And by the way, it's pretty amazing. I have not cried one single tear yet. And I felt bad about that for about 30 seconds. I went, why am I feeling bad? I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on them to get their tails out of my house. And they're gone. And they love Jesus, and they live 5 minutes away, and they still over at my house all the time anyway. But listen, I'm saying all that is that I have fought hard for my marriage. Every marriage in this room is worth fighting for. Somebody say amen. And it's gloriously difficult work. Don't let anyone tell you anything different. Marriage is gloriously difficult work. It's worth it, though. It's worth the effort. Every great marriage I know has unhurried conversations with one another. They have scheduled and unscheduled times where they look at each other and they talk with one another. Now, how do we get there? I'm going to show you a story in Luke chapter 5. Go to Luke chapter 5. Now, if you know the Bible, if you know what Luke is, Luke chapter 5, Jesus is launching. This is year one of his ministry. I mean, nobody knows who Jesus is, but suddenly this guy, this boy that everybody knows who's baptized in the Jordan River, and a voice from heaven says, "This is my son in whom I'm well pleased." He disappears out in the wilderness for like 40 days and gets lost, comes back, talks about these 3 epic encounters that he had with Satan and demons. His ministry is launching. Now listen to this, verse 15. It says, "Yet the news about him spread all the more, so that crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses." But listen to this, verse 16. "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." Now, I want to leave that text up because I want you to see the contrast in those two texts. This is when, if you're owning a business, this is your big season. This is, if you're running a company, this is your high season. This is when you're making hay. This is when profits are at an all-time high. The crowds were big. Crowds were everywhere. They were swarming him. They were around him. And it said in the middle of a busy season. See, I know what you're saying in the room this morning. Pastor Brady, I'd love to have those kind of conversations with my wife. I'd like to do what you're telling me to do, but I'm in a busy season. Listen, those seasons turn into years, and those years turn into decades. You're not in a busy season, you're living a busy life. And you're going to look up one day and regret that you did not have more conversations. Listen, I've been at the deathbeds of hundreds of men and women in my life as a pastor. I've never had one person on their deathbed look at me and say, "Pastor Brady, I just regret all the time I spent with my kids. My God, I wasted so much time on my kids. Man, I just spent so much time. Had every conversation I ever wanted to have with them. I felt like I just spent a lot of time with my wife, and man, we were just so close. I wish I wasn't as close with her." Every regret I hear is I wish I had not wasted so much time on things that were not as important. I wish I had spent more time with important things. And Jesus knew this. He often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. So I want you to catch this first phrase, and we're going to focus now on verse 16 for 16 minutes is how much I have with you. 16 more minutes, I'm going to share this one scripture with you, okay? It says he often withdrew. And I underline the word often because that's what I want you to catch. I'm assuming in this room that you only break one of the 10 commandments. You might break one or two more. I don't want to hear about them later. I may have to report you, but I can assume in this room that most of us do break the commandment to honor our Sabbath. Let me tell you what a Sabbath is, okay? Sabbaths are for rest. Sabbath is not a day off. Don't confuse those two things. A lot of people say, well, yeah, Pastor Brady, I took a Sabbath. Well, tell me what you did on your Sabbath. Well, I mowed the yard, I cleaned out the attic, I kicked the dog, I changed the oil. I mean, my gosh, you worked harder on your Sabbath than you did at your job. And I'm not legalistic about the Sabbath. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. We know that. But listen, Sabbaths are for rest. Sabbaths are when you wake up and try to do this once a month. You don't have to do it every week in the beginning, okay? The goal is to do it every 6 or 7 days, but start with one day a month if this is hard for you, okay? I'm giving you a bit of an out here, okay? I'm a nice guy. I'm trying to be gracious to you. One day a month, start out. Wake up that morning and say to the Lord, this day belongs to you and me. I am going to walk with you today wherever it takes me. I have no schedule. I have no plans. I am here with you. Now, I'm not talking about, actually, you can do a lot of fun things, go for walks and go fishing, do whatever you want. But dedicate that day to the Lord. Now, I started doing this when my kids were really small. I mean, my kids were like 4 and 6 years old when I started doing this. You know what we called it bedhead days. You know what a bedhead day is? I see some of you are good at it right now. So you wake up. You already got most of this down, okay? You just wake up and put a ball cap on, brush your teeth, hopefully, and that's it for the day. And I told my kids, I said, what do you want to do today? And they said, Dad, what do we have planned today? I said, I have nothing planned today. I said, let's just go for a walk. So we'd walk around our neighborhood. We'd end up at some cafe. We'd have a burger. We'd walk some more. We'd hang out in the backyard. We would let the day breathe. No ball games, no scheduled activities for a whole day. Now listen, my kids are now 25 and 23, and today is Saturday. If I called my son Abram and I called my daughter Callie today, what are you doing today? Nothing. Today's my Sabbath, Dad. I'm telling you, the anxiety in your teenagers, the anxiety at your home. Listen, we need to live less anxious lives. And the only way to deal with anxiety is to take anxious things out of our lives, to say no to things that cause anxiety, and to say yes to the Prince of Peace. Listen, he wants to give you a non-anxious life, but the only way you can be non-anxious is to be present with Jesus. And listen to what he says. He says, by choosing the Sabbath, listen to what you're doing. By choosing the Sabbath, we are protesting and rebelling against our innate desire to trust and worship our self-sufficiency. You want to be a rebel in the kingdom of heaven? This is when you're rebellious in the kingdom of heaven. I am not going to, the patterns of this world are not going to dictate my home. The world says, be busy, overschedule, overcommit, go, 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 go. The fear of missing out. You ever heard of FOMO? FOMO is a demonic thing in most homes, the fear of missing out. I'll tell you what I'm fear of missing out. I'm afraid of missing out on his presence, on his goodness, on being with him. All the rest of this stuff. Listen, I'm a very busy guy. I'm writing a book right now. I'm leading a nonprofit right now. I'm also the senior pastor of a church right now. I'm also a husband of a really great woman right now, and I have 2 grown kids that need me almost 24 hours a day, it seems. So listen, I'm as busy as you are. And I'm telling you that this rhythm of living will save your life. And don't confuse Sabbath with a vacation day. Vacations are for recreation. Listen, have you ever gone to Disney and come back rested? You come back broke. This is, you know that 40% of American vacation days are not even taken? Listen, if the company's giving you a paid day off, take it and use it for your Sabbath. They're going to pay you to do Sabbath. And so Sabbaths are for rest. Vacations are for fun. Make sure you're doing both in your life. Make sure that you, create memories for your kids. Pam and I made up our mind when our kids were really little that we weren't going to buy them a bunch of stuff. We were going to go to some great places. Same money you're going to spend on buying them crap that's going to be in the dumpster in 3 days. You can take them on a great trip. Go on road trip. Put them in the car with you. Listen, this is all free advice here, okay? This is totally free. Some of you are raising teenagers right now. Let me give you 2 pieces of advice for teenagers. Be present with them. This is not the time to farm them off to their friends. You need to be more present with your teenagers than you were when they were toddlers. Actually, your teens need you more than they did when they were toddlers. They're going to tell you they don't want you, but they do need you. And so Pam and I spent a lot of time with our teenagers. They were with us everywhere. And I did not let them hang out with knuckleheads. Listen, some of you need to, I don't know why I'm saying this because it's not in my notes. But I'm telling you, almost 90% of the problems I see with teenagers right now, when I ask the parents, well, who are they hanging out with? I went, my God, why are you letting that happen? Because I don't want to fight with them. Well, then pay the price for it. Listen, my kids will tell you today, if they were standing here, man, Dad used to make us so mad. Dad used to aggravate us. I used to make Dad, because he wouldn't let me hang out with Susie. Well, Susie's a knucklehead. And when Susie finds Jesus, you can hang out with her. But until Susie finds Jesus, you're not hanging out with her. I pray for Susie to find Jesus. I believe Jesus can save Susie. But you ain't hanging out with her until Jesus finds her. Some of you need to step up into your kids' lives and say, these are the kids you can hang out with. These are the kids we're praying for. Listen, around 12 years old, they stop listening to you exclusively. You know that? Listen, the first 10 years, you're God. The next 20 years, you're not. Hopefully, they'll survive those next 20, so they'll rediscover when they're about 30 that you were more God-like than demonic-like, okay? So he often withdrew. Listen, get into a habit, a rhythm. Make your life predictable. Don't be so impulsive. Be more predictable to your kids. Your kids need your predictability, not your impulsiveness. They need to understand a healthy rhythm of working well, hard work. Teach them how to work hard. Show up. I tell my kids all the time, you want to be a millionaire by the time you're 30, just show up right now. The bar is pretty low right now. Come on, somebody say amen. Just show up and do your dang job. And you'll own the company in about 10 years. Just show up. Work hard. Do the stuff in front of you. And then it says, the second thing in that phrase, it says, to lonely places to pray. To lonely places. I love that phrase because it's a place of seclusion. You're walking away from the noise of the world. Let me ask you a question. Do you have a place where you unplug your phone? When was the last time you went an hour without looking at a screen? Listen, I know this is going to sound like I'm trying to be dad on a soapbox, but several years ago I started putting my phone in another room. I don't sleep with my phone anymore. I sleep with my wife, not my phone. And I started putting my phone downstairs. We sleep upstairs. Changed my whole sleep patterns. And some of you, your body starts listening for indicators, those alerts. Your brain is wired to respond to those alerts. If you'll put your phone somewhere else, your brain will be taught that it can rest. But the reason some of you are not sleeping good is your brain is constantly aware of what activity is going on your phone. And I'm just telling you, those algorithms know how to wake you up. And I'm putting my phone in another room. Just try it for a week and send me $5 if it works, all right? I'm just telling you. All right, look at verse 17. Listen to this. He says, one day as he was teaching, Pharisees and teachers of the law who had come from every village of Galilee and from Judea and Jerusalem were sitting there, and listen to this, and the power of the Lord was present for him to heal the sick. Now, what was verse 16? Verse 15 was chaos, hard work, healing the sick. But notice that verse 16 is between verse 15 and 17. Verse 15, he's busy. Man, crowds of people coming to him for healing. Verse 16, he often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Verse 16 makes verse 17 possible. Some of you are wanting a verse 17 life, but you don't want to commit to verse 16. You want to do the things of God, but you don't want to do verse 16. Listen, Jesus didn't do verse 17 until he did verse 16. Verse 16 is, he often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Then, when it became time for him to do the work that God had called him to do, the power of the Lord was present for him to heal the sick. It could be, this is what it could sound like for you. And the power of the Lord was present for you to teach that fourth grade classroom. The power of the Lord was present for you to do your work with excellence. Power of the Lord was present for you to be the best police officer in the city. Power of the Lord was present for you to run your company. Power of the Lord is present in our lives because we made it exclusive. Listen, I know I'm going to date myself a bit, but do you remember when there was a phone that was attached to your wall and it had a cord on it? Remember this? This is back before some of you were born, but they're back in the day. There was a phone that was attached to your wall, and some of those cords were 20, 30 feet long. You remember that? I mean, you could go all over the house. There was no wireless, but the wire was 30 feet long. All right. When I first started dating my wife, we didn't have caller ID. So when the phone rang, it was kind of an exciting time because you didn't know who was calling. It could be your drunk uncle next door. It could be the IRS. It could be anybody, right? And I had all those people calling me. But I just started dating Pam. I kind of was interested in her. But the problem was I was interested in a couple of other girls at the same time. Now, that's not true today, but it was 38 years ago. So I just met Pam. I did not know her that well. Now, you guys know what I'm about to say because when the phone rings and she goes, "Hey, Brady, I have 2 seconds to discern if it's Pam or the other girls I'm liking. And you know if I get that wrong, it's game over." And fortunately for me, I got it right. I went, "Hey, Pam," and I held my breath. Yeah, this is Pam. Thank God. But you're taking a risk, though, right? Now, 38 years later, if Pam walked in the back door today, 38 years she's been my girlfriend, married almost 35 years, she can look at me with no words and communicate paragraphs to me. Come on, all the trained married men in the room, you understand what I'm talking about. You know when it's time to go. You know when she's mad. You know that you're going to get a talking to in the car when you get out there. You know when she's happy. You know when she needs money. You know all that from a look. Now, how did that happen? How did I go from answering the phone, holding my breath, not recognizing her voice right away, to now being able to look at her face and get volumes of information? How did that happen? Well, somewhere along the way, she became exclusive to me. And listen, some of you are not hearing the voice of the Lord because God's not exclusive. He's one of the voices, but until he becomes the exclusive voice in your life, I cannot promise you rest. And I cannot promise that you're going to have the power of God present in your life to do what I'm telling you to do. And listen, that's what Sabbath does. That's what I'm talking about taking days of rest. You know what you do on a day of rest? God's voice on that day becomes exclusive. Turn off your podcast, turn off cable news. You should have done that 5 years ago. But turn off all that and listen for the still, quiet voice of the Lord so that when you're in a confused life, when you're in the fight of your life, when you're in a battle when it's raging, when the storm has come against your home, God can speak to you in the storm. And your soul will be settled, and you'll know what to do. You'll know where to go. You'll know the decision to make. And that happens with Sabbath. That happens on my day off. I'm training myself. This is what I'm saying about rebelling. I'm rebelling against the noise of the world, and I'm training my spiritual man to hear his voice, to be led by his Spirit. So I was walking through, I got a minute and 39 seconds, and I'm going to be on time. I'm walking through this the city streets of Jerusalem last summer. And I'm with a rabbi, and it's Friday night. Sabbath is about to begin at sundown on Friday. It ends on sundown on Saturday. And we're walking through the old city of Jerusalem. It's a beautiful thing. If you ever get to go to Jerusalem, make sure you're there on Sabbath. It'll totally blow your mind. The whole city shuts down. All the streets go quiet. People go to their homes and begin to sing and eat. The whole city quiet like this. And I'm walking through those quiet city streets of Jerusalem, and these Orthodox Jewish people are walking by one another, and they're saying two words, Shabbat Shalom. I'm hearing them say that. He says, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. So I asked the rabbi friend next to me, I said, what is that? And listen to what he says. He said, it means, may you find God in your rest. And may you find that rest is found in God alone. So I speak over you men today and all of you watching online, Shabbat Shalom. May you find God in your rest. And may you discover that rest is only found in God alone. God bless you guys. Had a lot of fun with you. Hope this has been helpful to you. Take care.
Thank you for joining the No Regrets Leadership Podcast. For more information and to access past recordings, please visit www.menwithnoregrets.org/podcast.
Life Camp USA is a nonprofit organization that mentors young men who have lost a father due to military or law enforcement service. Life Camp USA provides an all-expenses-paid, week-long, world-class camp experience that inspires, equips, and navigates these fatherless young men through some of life's toughest moments. Life Camp USA's mentors serve grieving families by helping these sons establish healthy identities, values, character, and goals without the crucial aid of a father in their life. To learn more about Life Camp's mission, visit lifecampusa.org. Again, that's lifecampusa.org.